I was overwhelmed. My husband, who's a brilliant businessman, agreed to help me with the business side of the book. And so we started studying the internet, trying to figure out what we were going to be able to do to break into this new world of self-publishing. We were completely overwhelmed at first. There was just such a barrage of information. And then, really, almost by sheer chance, I discovered some articles by you on the internet. It was in a Create Space newsletter. And by coincidence, too, you're in San Rafael, which is the next town over to the town in California where we live when we are in the U.S. So it was wonderful to feel that sort of connection. We took your course, and that changed everything for us.
Well, that's really where I'm going, Karen. I'm very interested in that. I mean, you signed up for the course, you took the whole course, you guys were great students, but, I also know that, not everyone thinks that a course like that is really going to be a benefit to them. So what was it that convinced you to sign up for the course in the first place? Because after all, it's not inexpensive. It cost you several $100s to take the course. So what was it that made you sign up for the course?
Well, we knew we needed to do something. We had been all over the internet. We kept getting all this enormous amount of information, but it was conflicting. Some of it was dated. Some of it didn't make any sense at all. And we just couldn't get our arms around it. And we were studying and studying and studying. And, we're reasonably bright people. And we spend a lot of time studying topics that we know nothing about and trying to synthesize it for our own use. We could not do it. We simply couldn't find enough information that stuck together in any sort of coherent form. So we really went to the roadmap in order to have some sort of a method to a structure in which to approach the whole thing. And it worked beautifully for us. So we signed up for this course and we figured, well, we'll see. We'll try it and we'll do a unit or two. And if it's a disaster, well, we'll be unhappy about the money, but so be it. Well, at least we'll have given it a try. And so the minute we saw what you were doing, which was putting it into a structure, we breathed this big sigh of relief because we were just, so bewildered at first. And it was really wonderful. And there are so many things that we learned from it that it's hard even to run through the list, but I'll give you one example. One was we had heard a lot about social media, how the internet was this powerful tool and we needed to use it to market ourselves through social media. And that was sort of where everybody seemed to stop, as if we needed to know where it went from there. And then what we were looking for was an overview. And we didn't even know when to start. I was still in the process of writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good rough draft. I was probably 6 months to a year from the publication date. And I had no idea whether I needed to be doing anything now or whether, as in the old days, I should wait until the book was completely done and then jump into it. And what we learned, one of the first things we learned from your course and one of the most useful things was that you start 6 months out or more for any kind of social media because it's a long process and you need to build your audience. So after taking the course, or actually while taking the course, I developed a web page. I developed a blog. I developed a Twitter account, and I got very active on Facebook, which I had an account, but I really didn't do anything with. And over the next 6, 7, 8 months, I really built up all those contacts that really were going to be the base for my marketing campaign. And it was a way of getting feedback from the community. I did a lot of crowdsourcing, which was really fun, choosing the cover design, some of the elements of the cover. It was great. It was really fun. It got people involved. And then by the time the book came out, having spent months commenting on, no, I don't like that pair of shoes, you should put this other pair of shoes in, I don't like that fountain, you should put this other fountain in, blah, blah, blah. People had a vested interest. And of course, on my website, I've been posting snippets of the book that I knew would entertain them. And I was posting photographs about some of the places. When you write about a gorgeous city like Seville, it's wonderful to have a website where you can post all these photos so that people start dreaming about this gorgeous environment. And so each element of the social media package allowed me to bring out a different facet of the story and amplify the book and get people engaged in it. So it was great.
Well, that's just fantastic. And I think part of the reason you're getting great results, Karen, is because you actually followed it. You took action on what was suggested and you went out and did it. And that's great. Now, one of the things about the roadmap that's a little unusual from other courses is that everybody who signs up for the roadmap gets a one-on-one consultation. And I happen to remember ours pretty well because because we're local and we're kind of neighbors, we were able to get together and actually sit down and meet at a local cafe, the three of us, you, me, and Rich. And so I'm wondering if that particular element of the course was helpful to you, having
It was
that
great.
consultation.
It was really great because by the time that we were back in the States and were able to meet with you, we had done a huge number of the things that you had already said.
Uh-huh.
And we felt like we were on the right track, but there were all these small details that we weren't sure about, and it was such a relief. We said it for months before we saw you. Well,
Mm-hmm.
when we see Joel, we're going to talk to him about this. And a lot of times we solved the problem before we even met with you. But we had our list of questions, and it was really comforting to know that we could sit down with you, walk through that list, and know that somebody who actually knew what they were doing would comment on our plan. Because it seemed all right on paper, but we had not been in the trenches the way you have, and we really wanted to make sure that we had a veteran's opinion on this thing. And it was extremely helpful. And we didn't talk very long. I mean, an hour, hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very reasonable meeting from the 10,000 questions we thought we were going to walk in the door with. By the time we finished the course and worked through some stuff, it had whittled down to a pretty reasonable amount. But it was very comforting to know that you were there to talk to us. You were there if we needed additional help. It was great. It's really nice.
Well, I'm really committed to that because part of the problem with teaching authors how to become publishers is that everybody's book is so different. So there's really no way to replace that one-on-one contact where I get a chance to actually see the specific book and the author behind it. And, that gives me a chance to really strategize with you. Now, you mentioned that you went out and built a marketing system in a way in social media, and it sounds like that's going really well, and you have a lot of engagement on Facebook. But I'm curious, how would you kind of sum up the results you've been getting since you published the book?
Well, it's early days yet because the book has only been out a short time and we don't have full figures yet. But I was on Facebook today or on Amazon today because one of the best ways to see how you're doing is to go to Amazon.
Uh-huh.
One of the results of all my social media play and work is that I have 13 5-star reviews on Amazon. That is a huge plus.
That's
It's
fantastic.
really nice to get that ringing endorsement. I also have another one on Amazon UK. For some reason, they don't like to integrate them, so I don't get to. They can see the American ones on the other sites, but they don't show theirs on ours. So, but I have 14 really good, very enthusiastic 5-star. Reviews, which is wonderful. And then I just went and checked to see what my ranking was, because that's another way you try to track how you're doing. I don't even have sales figures on Kindle yet. I probably won't get them for another couple of weeks, so I really don't know. But I was especially curious about Kindle, having no real information. And I found out that my Kindle rank is 292,000, which doesn't sound like it's very high, except there are 800,000 books on Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
So as near as I can figure it, I'm in the top 36%, which is astonishing to me since the book just came out. Now, their algorithms are so crazy. This may not be accurate. It's very difficult to get real numbers out of Amazon. So I take this with a grain of salt, but I also look at it as a fairly positive affirmation. Same thing with the book itself. My rank is 466,000 out of, if these numbers can be trusted, about 42 million books that are being sold on Amazon. That puts me in the top 11%. Now, that's my ranking, not my sales number.
Right.
One of the things I learned in your course and in going into Amazon was that ranking is not the same as sales. It shows how many clicks you get on the page and who knows what else. There's some very complicated algorithm that Amazon uses to figure out its ranking, and it isn't strictly sales. But I have to take it that these are really good numbers for someone who's just out of the starting gate.
Well, absolutely. And also, something to remember is that, what really sells these books is word of mouth. And word of mouth takes time. People have to read the book, and then they love the book, and then they say to somebody else, "Oh my God, I just read this book about living in Spain. You got to read it." And so it can take weeks or months for that word of mouth to actually build about a book. And that's one of the great advantages of doing this kind of self-publishing, because you have time and you can continue to market throughout that time period. The other great thing, it seems to me, that's a great result is through your work in social media, getting those reviews on Amazon is going to have a really powerful effect because, you know, the reviews kick into Amazon's algorithms and they will start displaying your book more often when people are searching in your category and also pairing it with other popular books. And those things really help to drive sales because, you know, you can't sell them if people don't know about them. And this is a way that Amazon brings better quality books to the attention of people browsing their site. So that's, you know, you can see how the things start to connect, and that's really powerful.
It's all connected. One of the other things I thought was particularly good about your course was the testimonial solicitation letter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that letter alone would have been worth the price of the course. I'm not kidding you, Joel. Because I sat down and said, you know, I'm a professional writer and I can write a smoother letter than this, blah, blah, blah. And I worked at it for weeks and I came back and it was exactly your letter. I mean, I kept changing things and then I'd say, oh no, I see why Joel did that. I see why he put it this way. That letter is great. And I sent it out. And yeah, I didn't get famous people, but I got reasonably well-known authors to say lovely things about my book. And not only could I put it on the book itself, but more importantly, I could put it on the Amazon site.
That's fantastic. And, you know, I think I said actually in my new video lesson, which you might not have seen because you were in an earlier version of the course, that query, there were two things in the course I felt that would actually justify the entire expense of the course. One of them is that whole system of peer reviews / testimonials with the query letter.
Yep, it's fabulous.
And the other one is the whole, there's 2 lessons on keywords. And if you got nothing else out of it, if you see how that works and you follow along with the lesson and you see how the keywords work and then the results, because in the second half we actually show you the results in Google. I mean, those 2 things could be really powerful for your sales. So let me ask you this, Karen. Who do you think this course is good for? Who would you recommend it for?
Well, I would recommend it to anybody who's going to self-publish. I really would, whether they're a seasoned professional or not. One other piece of your advice that I thought was so fabulous, I almost forgot to mention it, but you were very clear that even a professional writer like myself should get a professional editor, a developmental editor, not just somebody to go through and check the commas. And it was so right, because I remember thinking when you first said that, but I'm a professional, I'm not going to need that. And then I started feeling that, you know, the book was sort of together, but it was still a little bit, it wasn't quite there. And I worked with one of the editors that you recommended, and she really helped me figure out where the weak spots were. She came up with some solutions. I came up with some solutions. The thing is infinitely tighter now. People who read earlier versions and the version that I put together with her help. They say it's just a definite change for the better. So that was another one of those pieces of information that would have been worth the price of the course right there.
Well, that's fantastic, and I really appreciate you taking your time to spend a few minutes with me talking about the roadmap and about your book, which is really fantastic. So tell everybody the title of the book again and where they can find it.
The title of the book is Dancing in the Fountain, How to Enjoy Living Abroad. And it's a very lighthearted, fun kind of a book about the expatriate experience. It's nonfiction. It's the story of my transition from someone who at that time was living in the Midwest to living in Seville, Spain, and what it's like to uproot your life and make all of those changes, and how the most important thing that you can bring with you is a sense of humor because you are going to need it. So it's lots of fun. It's only being sold online. It's available through Amazon in the United States, in Europe, around the world. And then every once in a while, I have boxes of books in my house right now because I've been invited to do a lot of speaking engagements, which is another thing I got through all of the social media. Mm-hmm. But that's a fairly short-lived piece of it. I really just want it to sell itself over Amazon, and that's where to find it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Karen. That's just really terrific.